the big six. I talked earlier about building clarity. So important to take a moment in your day, and especially like it's January, right? We're already through almost through the first month of 2026. Super excited about that. And some of you might be struggling right now through your weeks. Some of you might have like total clarity. You know exactly what you need to do. You're a high performer. You run a coaching business. You run multiple businesses. You're retired, whatever it is. You're locked in, you're dialed in. But sometimes you still need to do what I would call like a calibration or recalibration or an audit of how you're doing around building clarity and having clarity on a consistent basis. Not having clarity can cause stress, it can cause confusion about how you're aiming your energy. But really, we want to be able to aim our energy correctly. We want to be able to know when we wake up in the morning what we're going to do, why it's important, and how we're going to win the day. So, what I want to do is just show you six core things that I like to have touch points in. I'd say every quarter. So every 3 months, I'm making sure I'm reconnecting to these things. I did this before the new year. And these six core things I think are gonna just be helpful. So you can just write down like the big six and we can work through these things. So the big six, the first one is purpose. Now, Brendan was just talking about that too when I was asking the questions in my Brendan AI chat. But one of the most important things you can do is just try to like work this question out. Now it's a big question, depending on who you're asking. Like you don't like how can you explain your purpose to somebody? It feels like this grand, big, giant thing that you need to answer. But don't overcomplicate it. Just be like, what's your purpose? Like my purpose right now is like my priority is my family. My priority is making sure that they have an incredible environment to grow in, to learn, we've homeschooled my son for 15 years. He's attempting and trying out high school. He's doing great so far in the first couple of weeks of school. That's a huge part of, all the energy and the things that I've been trying to set up him for success. Like he's doing a great job and I'm excited, but it's like one of our purposes is to move and let him go to a high school and try it out. Another big giant purpose is like making sure that we're building the number one personal development app in the world, and that's a huge part of my purpose. I'm a product designer. And I have, it's a huge part of my identity and building a, building tools, building experiences. So it's a huge thing. And I have clarity around that. I can talk about that. But if you were to take time today and write down purpose and all these other things and do a little bit of self reflection, and you can do it in your journal or you can just do it in a notepad or you can write it down on a piece of paper, but do this work and just try to answer these questions and don't beat yourself up if you don't have great answers. It's just going to be fine. But I want you to do the work and just kind of attempt to try. The other thing that I want you to consider amongst purpose is this, and I called it kryptonite, but you can call it like opportunities. It doesn't have to be called kryptonite. But what are the thoughts, feelings, and habits that are standing in your way right now? Like, what are the things, like, if you were to think about, like, what are the opportunities? Sometimes it's hard to know what your opportunities are unless you have taken time to do an audit of what's working, what's not working. So if you think about kryptonite, like what are some things that are like kind of slowing you down, getting your way? It could be your schedule. It could be, how your health is right now. It could be your access to certain food, or, it could be the winter. There's a big storm coming. Like, I don't know, whatever it is, like write it out. Like, what are some things? I'd say right now, my kryptonite is like the cold. I'm like just moved from Napa, California. We're exploring the Midwest. It's cold right now. And I'm having to overcome like, you know, bundling up to do things that I normally would just go outside in Napa, just like experience a run or a jog. So I'm working through that, but that's allowing me to get a little bit more mental toughness. Even though I grew up in Ohio, I'm not used to the cold anymore, but now I'm having to get used to it. So things like that, I know it's happening. So now I can plan and I can coordinate better so that I can get, better winter clothing, and I can work towards being able to get outside and do the things I need to do or whatever it is. If you know what it is, then you can make changes to sort of course correct, and that's going to be really helpful. The third thing here is priorities. So amongst all the things that you got going on in your life, it's January 22nd, what are the top priorities for you today? What are the top priorities for you this week, this month? If you can write those things out in the top priorities, you can even put them in your checklist, or you can just like document. And just the practice of writing them down is super valuable, right? We're trying to seek clarity. Clarity is the number one thing here that we're talking about. And these 6 questions are going to help you actually build that clarity just by doing these self-reflection work. What's most important? Have that discussion. Even share it with one of your friends, your wife, your partner, your spouse. Like, share your priorities. And you'll learn something about your friends. You'll learn something about your spouse if you can actually go through and do this activity together and just be like, what are your priorities right now? What's most important? Simple question. You can do it, and it's super helpful. All right. One of the quick questions around where do certificates go? So if you complete a course, you're going to get certificates completion in your growth profile. To get to your growth profile, you just hit the U section and go to My Profile, or you can hit your name at the very top of the app when you first open up the dashboard. And so that's the first 3. Now I want to shift over into the second 3, which are more around targeting keywords that help define your identity, your interactions, and what success looks like. So what I want to do is challenge you to write down, and when it comes to your identity, what are some words that would help you define like who you are and what your legacy is. Like what is a way that you could self-identify? For example, I might be like, for me, how I want to identify is somebody that is courageous, somebody that is motivated, somebody uh, that is consistent. Very important for me in when people think of who is Drew Bridewell, I want them to think those things, and I'm going to practice those things to make sure that it's true, and I'm going to live in that, and I'm going to be congruent with it. So that's one step. You can just write them out. For interactions, think about how you want to interact with people on a daily basis. Do you want to be a great communicator? Do you want to be a great collaborator? Do you want to be, when you think about how you're going to interact with somebody, do you want to be excellent when you get to experience them and put your energy into the room? Like, this moment is going to be excellent. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Think about, if you're thinking about how you're going to live in congruency with those keywords, it's going to allow you to show up better in those moments. A very important, very powerful way of just anchoring in who you are and how you're going to show up. Then the last one here is what success looks like. Now, as a product designer, I'm trained like you wouldn't believe on thinking about what the outcome is that we're driving for versus just thinking about, oh, I'm going to add a new feature here and add a new feature. It's not about the features, it's about the outcome. And the outcome is so vital and so important. The same thing goes in our life. Like, well, what does success look like for this life that we live? Great family, great supportive system, you know, contributing to society in a positive way, uh, being a great role model for my family, my kid, being a great role model for my team. What does that success look like? How could you talk it out? How could you write it down? How could you define it? And then go through that exercise and write out these 6 core things. And I just I want to give you those things in that exercise to be able to kind of keep moving through. And it's going to be really important. Now, you could go through and just like write out these things. And I've had like worksheets and things that really help with that. But I also think about, like, for those 6 things in clarity, think about, and this right here, what you're looking at is what I would call a growth loop. This growth loop was designed to thinking about what are the core touch points of things that I'm going to do every day to also have even more clarity on how I'm going to move through the day. Now, every day, if you can tap into these 4 core things, which is a reflection practice, which is what we've been doing this entire session, right? We reflected about our goals. We reflected about these 6 core questions. You can do that through journaling and benchmarking with life scores inside the app. You might have one-on-ones that you've already had in this meeting, or you might have another meeting towards the end of the day. We're going to be working through things with somebody else, another individual. Think about how you can come prepared for that meeting and write things down and go into the session. There's also other things inside of my reflection area here in the top where it says weekly status updates. Now, it's Thursday. And for me, having clarity how I'm ending the week, but also starting the next week is so important. So what I will do is we have this reflection practice where I will answer these 5 core key questions at the end of the day, or I'm pretty much already answering them now, but I'll have them ready for next, or for the status updates on Friday, and then I'll be prepared and ready to go for what's ahead next week. And if I come down, so I'm on the reflection, I'm going to come all the way down to training. Then thinking about training is like, what am I doing this week to get better at the things that I was just talking about with clarity? Like, what am I executing on this week? Where am I spending time on practicing something? I'm playing in something, and then I'm participating in things. Now, I was also a student athlete. I played at Savannah College of Art and Design. I was a baseball player. I got a full ride to play baseball. I also was a catcher like my entire life, and I was just into sports. So I played football, I wrestled, and baseball. And one of the things that I know about baseball, and being an Ohio athlete, like it's competitive sports year round, 24/7, and you have to train, you have to practice, you have to get into a muscle memory. And I think personal development is really similar to that. Like you practice something and you get better at it. And some things are completely new, like having to set really healthy boundaries with your family. You might not have had that upbringing of doing that, so you have to practice those things. And we have a full entire month masterclass about that exact thing. Or if you're trying to get better at finances and you're trying to work through how do I get more confident about my wealth approach and getting financial freedom. Well, we got David Bach and Mel Abraham in the product to be able to help you do that with the masterclass in finances and wealth. So whatever it is that you need to get better at, you know that you're going to have to train at it. And that's a part of the personal development practice. It's just going to be a thing that you got to do. And then if we come all the way up to the learning at the top, there's still going to be things that you're going to be watching and reading and listening to inside the app. We got audio courses, we got things that you're going to read, things that you're going to watch. But ideally, you are going to watch it, absorb it, and then you're going to go practice it. It's not the same thing. And learning is not the same thing as practicing something, right? It's the same thing. Why there's actually practice in school, sports, and college and everything. Professionals, you practice so that when you go and play, you're ready. And if we come back down to taking action, this is where, those priorities that you have all this clarity about what you're doing, but really that execution and those outcomes that you're shooting for, that's where you're taking action and doing the work. You coming to the session today was like you taking action, you coming in prepared, you coming in to actually come and learn and do something. Like that's so powerful. So I think it's just really vital that, when you're thinking about how am I going to grow, you got to build your own growth loop. So you could literally draw this out and fill in the blanks of each of these things and work through your growth loop. Now, let me come back to you. It is so important let me grab a piece of paper really quick. So, I'm sure you have a piece of paper, and I want to draw this really quick so that you can consider doing this yourself at your house. So if I drew a figure eight, right, you can do this by just drawing the training that I just had on the screen. And I'll be right with you in a second. I'll show you. So then you would fill out, reflect, train, take action, and learn. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. And then what you would do, because you already had those other 6 words, hopefully you took some notes. And then you can just fill out how you're going to divide and split up your focus into this growth loop. And then I also have coach and teach on there because as you develop mastery, you're going to get to practice building mastery of, you might be a coach, you might be needing to teach these things. And how you do this or how you teach and practice anything is going to be pretty vital to your personal growth, your personal development. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you got something out of this.